Georgia lawmakers returned to the Gold Dome this week for 4 more legislative days while pausing on Tuesday for a committee workday. That means that only 3 legislative days remain until crossover day, when bills must pass out of their respective chambers to remain alive. Here's what happened at the Capitol this week. The Senate adopted a record $40.5 billion mid-year state budget that prioritizes disaster relief, infrastructure needs, and improving Georgia's prisons. After the Senate's changes, the budget now goes back to the House. The Senate approved the Red Tape Rollback Act of 2025. Senate Bill 28, sponsored by Senator Greg Dolezal, would require state agencies to perform top-to-bottom reviews of their rules and regulations every 4 years, direct state agencies to reduce compliance and paperwork burdens on small businesses, and require agencies to provide an economic impact analysis to the Georgia General Assembly for proposed rules that are estimated to cost over $1 million over 5 years. The Senate advanced their second bill to curb lawsuit abuse this week. Senate Bill 69, sponsored by Senator John F. Kennedy, would regulate third-party litigation financing with the hope of limiting outside influence on trials, which includes that from foreign governments, and predatory lending practices. Also, in the issue of tort reform, the House created a Subcommittee of Rules on lawsuit reform. It will be chaired by Representative Leverett, and on the matter, Speaker Jon Burns said that the House is committed to working alongside Governor Brian Kemp to pass meaningful, substantive legal reform this session. The Foundation's Chris Denson testified in support of Senate Bill 142, sponsored by Senator Kim Jackson, which would establish a pathway for international medical school graduates to obtain medical licensure in Georgia. The bill advanced out of committee and heads to the full Senate now for consideration. The Foundation's Kennedy Atkins testified in support of House Bill 328, sponsored by Representative Casey Carpenter, which would increase the annual tax credits available for the state's tax credit scholarship program from $120 million per year to $200 million. Carpenter noted that the program is regularly oversubscribed on day one each year, and no action was taken at that time. The Senate passed legislation that would allow children of foster parents to qualify for the Georgia Promise Scholarship program created last year. Senate Bill 152 is sponsored by Senator Dolezal. Also on the education front, the Senate adopted legislation designed to combat absenteeism in schools. Senate Bill 123, sponsored by Senator Kennedy, would establish a localized approach working with families, administrators, and those identified as chronically absent when reviewing individual cases. Additionally, the bill would require local boards of education to implement policies for identifying and intervening with chronically absent students, ensuring a focus on the root causes of their absences. Legislation to prohibit the use of cell phones by students through 8th grade cleared the House Education Committee. House Bill 340, known as the Distraction-Free Education Act, is sponsored by Representative Scott Hilton. And finally, we turn your attention to a couple of lighthearted bills that we can get behind. This week, the House adopted House Bill 14, sponsored by Representative Carpenter, that would designate cornbread as the official bread of Georgia, as well as House Bill 233, sponsored by Representative Rick Townsend, which would designate Brunswick stew as the official stew of Georgia. Lawmakers will return for Legislative Day 26 on Monday. For more updates on the legislative session, please be sure to subscribe to our weekly Friday Facts newsletter.